What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to PXA Peeks at Nidhogg 2. Nidhogg. Indeed. So, the first one of these games came out in 2014, I believe, after being in development and having been shown off for quite some time. Comes to us from a largely one-person development team out of LA called Messhoff. There's a couple of different people involved in the company, but the games are principally made by one person. And while this was a very simple title originally, it was basically a stylized, grotesque fencing game, if you will. It was only for 2 players, and it was very, very simple in concept, but difficult to master, and there was a surprising amount of strategy to it. And, well, this is the sequel, which just came out. I actually got press code ahead of release on this, but this is coming out with the embargo list, which is a first for me, so that's kind of cool. And if you played the original Nidhogg, you're going to see that this looks quite a bit different, and it's gone through quite an evolution, to put it mildly, at least in the visual department. The gameplay hasn't really changed that much, to be honest with you. I would say in many ways it's more of the same, but as someone who enjoyed Nidhogg, I do enjoy the improvements that were made here for sure. So, alright, so we're gonna jump into this thing here, and I'm gonna show you guys. So, there's an arcade mode, which is kind of like a sort of a single run-based campaign mode. There's local multiplayer, which includes a quick match with 2 players, and it also has a built-in tournament system, so as you can see there, for up to 3 to 8 players. And there is online play. You can invite a friend or you can find an opponent. I'm recording this when the game is not out yet, so I have not been able to find an opponent through matchmaking at all. But Cavmac actually also got review code for this, and she and I played a whole bunch of this afternoon, and I can safely say that admittedly while we were playing through the same ISP, the netcode seems to work pretty well. The original Nidhogg, when it came out, the netcode was pretty broken, and it got better over time, but it was not perfect. Certainly not. This seems to be much better. The options for this are pretty minimal. There's not a lot of controls in this, but you can it sort of lists them out here. I don't know if you can remap them. Oh, it looks like you can. Okay, that's very good. So you do have that. Audio options, just sliders. There's very little video options in this. The original game was made in Game Maker Studio. I believe this one is too. So it runs in your native resolution, but it's a largely 2D game, so it's kind of fine. You know, it doesn't really make a huge difference. And you can see here there's just some little additional things, including how to play. Pretty straightforward, and you're gonna see what I mean about this. So this game is very simple in concept, but it is a lot of fun, and it's pretty hard to master for the most part. So one thing they did add to this is character customization. You can't save your customizations, which is a little bit of a bummer, but you get to pick before you go into different games, you get to pick a color for your character, and you can customize all sorts of different elements of your character, which is kind of cool. They look ridiculously goofy and exaggerated, but it's pretty fun. And you can just hit the X button to do a random mix-up. And this is usually all I do, because, I mean, just about all of these are pretty rad, right? You can pretty much do whatever you like. So, alright, and off we go. So, the original Nidhogg also only had a very small spattering of maps, and really only 1 or 2 of them were kind of that great. The others were kind of not so much. This has a wide variety of maps. As you can see here, there's 10 different arenas, and they actually all play quite a bit different from each other, and I've actually enjoyed just about all of them. And here we go. Off we are. So, the core concept of this is you got to kill the other guy and get to your end of the level, in which case you get eaten by what is called the Nidhogg, which is a Norse mythological sort of horrible worm creature thing that you'll see when I can get to the end here. And that's it. Any way you do this, you win, you lose, you die. That's kind of the whole point. But you have to get through your opponent to get on the way there. And as you can see, there is no amount of lives in this. It is completely limitless lives, though in multiplayer you can set time limits if you like. And your goal is just to, the person will, when you take your other opponent out, they will stay dead for a few seconds, giving you a time to run to the direction that you need to, and then they'll spawn back in. There is, in the original game, everybody always spawned with a sword, just like you're seeing here. And you have a couple of options. So you can change your stance with up and down. So I'm playing with a controller. You can play this with mouse and keyboard, though I find the controller's a little bit better. It's a little more precise that way. This is out on the PlayStation 4 as well, so you know, it was obviously designed with a controller in mind. So you can stab people like that. You can change your stance by moving up and down. Depending on what direction on the analog stick or the D-pad you press when you press your attack button, you will take a sort of a different kind of swing. If you press up and press your attack button, you'll throw your weapon like that. And as you can see, you can counter that. So you can throw the weapon and have it hit somebody, but they can also put a guard up and actually counter it. And in the case of some of the other weapons, like the crossbow, which I'll hopefully show you later, they can actually shoot your rounds back at you, which is pretty interesting. So yes, then that's one of the major innovations in this one over the last game, is the last one only had swords. And you can also punch people and just melee them with your fists if you happen to lose your weapon. In this, there's a wide variety of weapons. So there's a sword, there's a dagger, there's a crossbow, which is really cool. And there's other ones I'm missing here, I think. So here we go. I got to the end of this screen. So everyone's like, yay, you made it. And here's your victory. And there you go. Yeah, I'm the winner because I got eaten by the worm. Yeah, that's how it works. All right, and we move on to the next one. So I've beaten this campaign once already. But you can obviously play it over multiple times. And I'll tell you right now, though this is at its core a multiplayer game, the AI in this game is no pushover. I'll tell you what, so the original Nidhogg, if I recall correctly, did not have a campaign when it shipped. It got added later. And the AI in that was challenging, but certainly nothing too crazy. This one, by the end, gets rough. Doing one run of this campaign took me the better part of an hour, and one match I played for almost half of that time. The AI and I were just having a real good push-pull, going back and forth. It's very good at defending. It's good at staggering back and forth, like waiting for you to come to it. It knows how to counter. It knows how to do jumping melee. It's tough, and it gets harder the further in you go. So, and the other little mechanic that you're seeing here is, you see how the color is changing at the top there? So that little score meter indicates how far you are into the map and which color is sort of in control. So a person can get run off the screen. You can either voluntarily run off the screen, or you can get pushed off the screen by whoever's in control, because whatever colored character is in control is what's controlling the scrolling. So, and that, as you can see, control changes by whoever got the last kill. So I got the last kill, so I'm in control of the scroll, and it's controlling me right now. So if I outrun this guy, or he chooses to run off the screen, then he doesn't lose, he dies. And we have to wait again for him to respawn. Again, if he gets a kill on me, see the control shifts back to him, and you can tell that because the color of the squares change, as well as the arrow at the top. So there's also strategy involved in that, which is making sure that you're controlling the scroll, and you can sometimes use that to your advantage. You don't always have to fight. Sometimes it behooves you. See how he did it there? Because he ran to the left, he pushed me off the screen. Now here, you see it's choosing to fight, but he can actually back off, and because he did that, I died again, and I have to wait to respawn. And that's the whole mechanic of it. It's really like it's almost like a multi-screen tug of war. There's very much a back and forth, and the best matches of this are the ones where one person doesn't dominate, where you're really going back and forth, and you can turn things around at the absolute last minute. There's actually an achievement in this game for getting pushed right to the end of the level and then turning it around and winning, which I have gotten, which is always a lot of fun. And that's what's really fun about this. It's really, really simple. This game only needs 2 buttons and a couple of combinations thereof. This is a game I could hand to almost anybody and say, okay, here's how you play, and they can get good at it quickly. Like, Cavmac had never touched a Nidhogg game before, and she was giving me a very good challenge very quickly. So it's really neat that way, because a lot of these local multiplayer party games, I mean, this does have online, but a lot of these games are local multiplayer only, and that's kind of their focus. A lot of them have too many systems, and they take too much to figure out. And the ones that I think are really good and that have the most legs are the ones that can have a layer of strategy to them, but are very easy to pick up the core concepts of. And Nidhogg really excelled at that, and that's why it did so well. And I'm assuming that's why the developer chose to make another one. And obviously, he really upped his game. The Nidhogg 1 had a very cool art style. I really like the style of it. This looks basically nothing like it. I mean, if you look at what Nidhogg 1 was, it's quite a stark contrast from this. It really reminded me of a game that could have been done on an 8-bit computer by some people with sort of demo scene coding level experience. You know, it feels like something you would have seen out of one of those really elite coding groups from Europe in the 80s. This looks more like something that you would have seen on the Super Nintendo, or perhaps more accurately the Amiga or Atari ST, something like that. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more parallax scrolling. Take a drink. Obviously a lot more color. There's a lot more, there is character customization. There's more frames of animation. There's a lot more color. It's the backgrounds are, everything in this game is quite grotesque. It's obviously cartoonish because you're painting the level with your enemy's blood, but obviously this is not realistic at all. Everybody looks cartoonish and weird. But if you look at the backgrounds of some of these levels, even the ones that are a little more pleasant, they're really kind of gross and Geiger-esque almost. And that's kind of the motif that he goes for here. And I have to say, Messhoff made a real departure with this game over the first one in terms of the art style. They decided to do something completely different and just sort of throw everything out the window and go, no, we're gonna go in a totally different direction. The first game also had a really interesting electronic score that was done. I am terribly sorry. I am blanking on the person who did it right now. That person has returned for this one, but it's much more of a mix of musicians this time in Nidhogg 2, and it sort of fits in the sense that it's sort of weird, eclectic music. It definitely, not necessarily the kind of thing you would expect to hear in a game like this, but it's still good, and I think it still lends well. And it's sort of beaty and fast, and it's varied, and it sort of gives it adds to the pacing, I think, in a way. So here we go. We got this one here. I don't remember when the additional weapons come into play. Hopefully it's here. But, yeah. So, the thing with this is that, by and large, it's not that different. So, the major additions that have, other than the audio-visual aesthetic, of course, and you see you can also knock weapons out of people's hands like that, the main additions to this over Nidhogg 1 are multiple weapons and a little bit different on the finisher. So you see there's a finisher where you can sort of curb stomp somebody when they're down in kind of a humiliation move. There's no additional benefit to that. And in fact, it's to your disadvantage in many ways because, so you see, melee is not a one-hit kill. You've actually got to get someone down and then come up and sort of finish them off. So, and you can have a real back and forth here on melees if you want, and it spills a lot of blood, which is kind of the hilarious part. Dang it. So, the finishers are interesting because you can get somebody and kind of curb stomp them. There was kind of a neck break move in Nidhogg 1, but this one is a little bit more involved and a little bit more grotesque. But it's actually not to your benefit to do it because it doesn't increase. That provides you no benefit. It doesn't increase the enemy respawn time. And in fact, man, this is the longest drawn out melee I've ever had. There we go. See, it's really gross and feels really satisfying to do. But it also doesn't really provide much benefit because the enemy, because of the time you're taking, the enemy will actually respawn faster, giving you less time to run to the right, which is or to the left, depending on what perspective you're playing, to run in your needed direction. Oh, they got me with this thrown weapon there. Those are also really satisfying. Oh, yes. You see those moments like that, those moments where you just get a sudden grotesque kill and you're like, yeah! That's kind of where this game really shines. That's what puts a big old smile on your face while you're playing it. So the finishers are great and they're very satisfying and grotesque, but you're actually kind of hurting yourself by doing that. If you really want to play for efficiency, you want to just run as fast as you can. But of course, bragging rights and trash talk is very much what this game is about too. So obviously, I still love to take the finishers when I can. All right, so here we go. And yeah, one of the things I liked about both of these games is that you can play it online if you so choose. Nidhogg 1 did have a decent community. I don't know if it still does. It had a good community going for a while, and it was... despite the fact that the netcode was not very good. And in this one, I'm playing a special preview build that apparently has updated netcode. I believe this is what it's going to ship with when it comes out, but... It seems to be very good. I haven't yet played it with someone, with a higher ping, who's in a different region, things like that. Obviously, when I played it, Cadmac is the only person I've been able to play it with because she was the only person I could find to play it with. And we were on the same, we were both on the same network. We were both at my place, but we were playing it online, though, of course, we were both on the same ISP at that time, so... Your mileage may vary on that. A game like this is very much about precise timing, so a decent netcode is obviously key. It doesn't need the precision of, say, a traditional fighting game, but yeah, if you had bad response time, you could have a lot of, hey, I totally hit that guy first moments, and that obviously sucks the fun out of this. And of course, if you're playing in local multiplayer, though, you're not going to have that problem. And I think being able to have someone that you can trash talk with as you're playing is really cool. It would be sort of the best way to play this. I'm sure if you had a buddy on Discord or something like that, you could certainly get that element out of it too. But it is oh geez. All right, I totally jumped that one. Oh, no, you don't. Oh, see what I mean? The AI in this is pretty good. It's good at anticipating you, and I like that. And as you can see, there's a real variety in the levels. Yes, at the end of the day, it's still just run to the left or run to the right, but there are different obstacles to vault, and just the visuals is quite a bit different and really cool. And as you see, it's very fast-paced, which is the other nice thing. And like I said, it goes back and forth a lot, and there's a lot of a real good push-pull mechanic to this. If you're playing against someone who's even, like, they don't even have to be super skilled or super good at video games. You could be playing this game against someone who even just wants to button mash and is not necessarily the world's most skilled player, but you can still have a lot of fun. And yeah, this goes almost team meat in terms of the grossness of some of its visuals. It's just, this is apparently where they're making here what they call Nidhogg, which, yeah, okay. That kind of made me chuckle, I have to say. But at the end of the day, this sequel, it's very iterative. You know, the biggest change by far is the art style. And the character customization, which is really, again, also about art style. It's very aesthetic. So you see in that case there, because we both died at the same time, there was actually no one in control. You may have seen that the block at the top was split between two colors. And that's an interesting mechanic, too, which is that if no one's in control, the screen actually doesn't scroll, and you two are trapped on the same screen until one of you takes each other out. So it basically forces you into close combat. Again, another neat mechanic. And if you're playing in multiplayer, there's a whole bunch of rule variants and cheats that you can put on. You can turn on a low gravity mode. You can turn on a hilarious mode where any weapon you throw boomerangs back, but it can still hurt either you or the other enemy. Cadmac and I played that a bunch this afternoon, and we were laughing our asses off. The low grab mode is cool. There's a mode called Baby that doesn't allow you to throw weapons and requires you to crawl. Which that one we didn't like so much, but you know, there's all kinds of things like that. There's forced sudden death. There's all sorts of other things. You can also set a time limit when you're playing in multiplayer matches, which just forces you into a sudden death single screen if you run out of time, and sort of forces the issue. All right, there we go. So we got that one. So there's a lot of variance and ways to mix up the play when you're playing with multiplayer, which is always really cool. So, okay, here we go. So, yeah, now we get the weapon variant. So, you see that's a dagger there. Much shorter range, but it, you know, it moves real quick when you chuck it. Yeah, that's always nice. So, this mode actually exposes you to the weapons individually. So, there is as well the crossbow. The crossbow is kind of fun. It has unlimited ammo. And you can, as I said, you can actually redirect someone's crossbow bolts back at them by basically reflecting them, which is always kind of cool. The crossbow it's a little trickier to play with, but it is a lot of fun, and it has unlimited ammo, so you can just spam it if you want. Though the crossbow bolts also don't move super quick, especially in relation to something like this when you're throwing a dagger. So you have to be careful about that. You have to make sure you can spam it, but that definitely is not always to your advantage. The dagger I actually really like just because of how incredibly fast it is. It's quite enjoyable. But you sort of see here, and the AI is getting much tougher in this, so that you could actually have a little bit of fun with this if you're playing it single player, but once you've done a run of the campaign, you've kind of seen it, and you get to tour all the maps, and you get to tour the weapons, but then that's kind of it. And yeah, for the $15 price tag, I don't think you're going to want to play this for just the single player, but at least it does have online so that if you don't... If you're like me, frankly, and you don't regularly have people over you can play local multiplayer games with, at least you have the option to play this with other people. You still have an option to play this with other people. So that's always good. But you're sort of seeing the core of it here. I mean, do I recommend this over Nidhogg 1? If you own Nidhogg 1 and really, really enjoyed it and like the idea of more and better maps and more weapon variety, yeah, I'd say this is worth picking up for 15 bucks. If you don't own either one and think this looks cool, I mean, the original Nidhogg is still $10. And there's definitely more maps in this. As I said, there's more weapons. There's the map variety is much better. There was only like 1 or 2 good maps in Nidhogg 1, whereas I'd say they're all pretty good in this one. The developer develoinely has addressed a lot of the criticisms of the first game, which is something I obviously always appreciate. Well, in any dev, but in an indie dev in particular. I don't know. I would only say this is worth the upgrade if you play Nidhogg a lot and are still playing it and want the additional little bit of map variety that this offers. If Nidhogg 1 is still doing the job for you, I don't think what's different in this is necessarily enough to buy it again. The additions are nice. Are they $15 nice? I mean, $15 isn't too bad, but especially, and I don't know if I'd recommend either Nidhogg unless you have people to play it with, because these are not single-player games. They're not really focused on that, and if you don't want... Oh, you sneaky bugger. And yeah, if you don't... if you're into single-player stuff, you're not going to find a lot here for you. But when I first saw the art style in this, I was not very sold on it. I was like, this just looks like kind of grotesque, goofy Amiga. I don't know. I thought the first one was a little more stylistic. But as I started to play it, and I saw the quality of the animations and the variety in the levels in that, I actually turned around on it. I still really like the art style of the first Nidhogg. I think it's very impressive, and it's very unique. But I like this too, and the aesthetic that they went after it was very targeted, and I think they did a pretty good job. It looks good. I like the bigger variety in electronic music that they have. I like the better netcode. And yeah, a few different weapons and more functional online and a good map variety. Yeah, that's enough for me, for sure. So you have to make that determination for yourself, but if this looks like fun and you don't have the first game, I would say just skip it and get this one. But if you've got the first game already, if you got a crew that likes Nidhogg, this is just, you know, Nidhogg with newer looks and more stuff, and that's a good thing by me. So yeah, that is Nidhogg 2, developed and published by Messhoff in 2017. This is on the PC. It is also on the PlayStation 4. The PC version is quite good. You know, it's very lightweight. You could play this on a laptop very easily, which is nice. Also good for local multiplayer games. And I'm sure on the PS4 this is probably fine too. But yeah, I enjoy it for what it is. But you gotta want this kind of thing. But if you do, there's nothing really else like this out there. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. If you want to watch something else, check out the videos on screen now, and don't forget to follow @PXA Media on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.